15 years in federal prison. No reputation, no safety net. My first deal out, 372 units, 4 million in profit. Let me tell you what that actually took. Because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I had money stashed away, or I had some old contact who owed me a favor. I had nothing. I walked out of prison with a coffee cup my student gave me. What I had was a system, a set of principles for any deal rock solid in my head. I've been teaching it for a decade. There's a lot of time to prep for class in prison. I was ready, and I had something else that most people don't talk about. I had zero fear of losing. You know why? Because I'd already lost everything. My family, my reputation, my freedom. When you've lost it all, walking into a room where the worst case scenario is someone says no, that's nothing. That's a vacation. So when I came across the 372 unit deal, I didn't hesitate. I didn't analyze it to death. I looked at the numbers, I looked at the opportunity, and I moved. Because it wasn't money that got me the deal. It wasn't connections. It was one decision made at the exact moment most people would have left the room. You want to know the difference between the investor who closes and the one who almost closed? One of them was waiting to feel ready. The other one understood that feeling never comes. I wasn't ready for a 372 unit deal, not by any normal standard. I didn't have capital. I didn't have the reputation in the market. I had a felony conviction and 15-year gap that couldn't exactly be explained away at a business lunch. But I had the skill and I had the knowledge. 40 years of deals doesn't disappear just because you go to prison. If anything, they crystallize. You strip away all the noise and all the ego, and you're left with what actually works. Here's what most people get wrong about starting over. They think they need to rebuild everything before they can move. They want the reputation back first, the track record back first, the confidence back first. But confidence doesn't come before the move. It comes because of it. Every time you stay in the room, when it gets hard, you become someone who can stay in the harder room. That's not motivation. That's how it actually works. Commitment to staying in motion, not to a perfect outcome, not to certainty, just staying in motion long enough for something to actually compound. That's what made the difference. Not perfection, just consistency when it would have been easier to step away. I moved anyway, and everything that I've built since started with one decision. My foundation of faith, that wasn't just personal. It's what kept me moving when doubt said stop. So let me walk you through the 372 unit deal, specifically the moment where every version of me that was waiting to feel ready would have destroyed the opportunity. Stop diagnosing yourself. The gap between your first attempt and your first close isn't a character flaw, it's a skill gap. And skill gaps are fixable. Every real estate deal has a moment when it goes on life support, flatlines. At some point in the process, every single deal is dead in the water. That doesn't mean they stay dead. And how you handle the flatline moment is what separates you from everyone else. Now let me tell you about the moment that almost killed the 372 unit deal. We were sitting in a conference room. The seller was an older gentleman, very nice, very polite, who had owned the property for decades. There were a couple advisors in the room with him. I had laid out what I thought was a strong, fair structure. The numbers worked on paper. Everything looked clean. Then he went quiet. Not the thoughtful kind of quiet, the kind where energy in the room shifts. and you can feel the deal starting to slip away. One of the advisors leaned back in his chair. Another one started flipping through his papers, like they were already moving on to the next thing. Then he finally spoke. And what he said wasn't about price. He said something like, "I've been down this road twice already. Buyers who couldn't close, I don't know who you are." That's when I knew it wasn't the numbers. His advisors had Googled me. They knew I'd just come out of prison. The hesitation wasn't financial, it was personal. He needed to know who he was actually dealing with before he'd go any further. Most people in that room would have folded. I knew because I watched it happen hundreds of times. The pressure built, the deal started to slip, and the voice in my head said, "Walk away, protect yourself. This isn't going to work." The trick is to turn that voice down and turn up the one that's searching for solutions. Because I promise you, there is a solution to every dead in the water deal. And here's what that skill looks like in practice. Because in that 372 unit deal, I had every reason to self-diagnose my way out of it. Every time I held through the hard moments, I became someone who could hold through the harder one. That's not motivation. That's how it actually works. When the 372 unit deal flatlined, I didn't save it with positive thinking. I saved it because I had a system for what to do when a deal goes sideways. And that system came from doing it wrong 100 times before I ever did it right. Here's what most people get backwards. They think the successful investor walks into the room with confidence, and that confidence carries the deal. No, the successful investor walks into the room with a checklist. If they're confident, it's because they trust their checklist. My checklist is simple. When a deal flatlines, I ask 3 questions. Where is the other side's pain? What do I have to solve that pain? And what am I willing to give up to keep this thing alive? 3 questions, and you'd be amazed how many people never ask any of them because they're too busy panicking or protecting their ego. In that deal, asking those 3 questions took me about 90 seconds. Where was his pain? It wasn't a price, it was trust. He'd been burned by buyers who couldn't close, and now he was sitting across from someone his advisors had just looked up online, someone with a federal conviction. His hesitation wasn't financial, it was personal. What did I have that could solve that pain? I had 40 years of deals, a track record that predated everything that had happened to me, and the willingness to address it directly, not dance around it, not pretend it wasn't in the room. What was I willing to give up? I set the number aside entirely and looked him in the eyes. I told him exactly who I was, what I'd been through, and why I was still standing in front of him. I let him make the decision based on the truth. Once I had clarity on those 3 answers, everything changed. The conversation stopped being about the deal and started being about a man making it. And that's when the room shifted. That's when the deal started breathing again. I'll go deeper on the full framework next week. The exact moves, the exact language, but understand this first. The system only works if you're still in the room when the deal flatlines. If you've already walked out, the best framework in the world is useless. Staying in the room is the prerequisite to everything I teach. In the 372 unit negotiation room was the moment that defined what kind of operator I would become. You know, it's not free, not deciding. Hesitation has a price. It compounds And right now, somewhere in your life, you're paying it. Let me talk to the people watching this thinking, I don't have 40 years of experience. I don't have your track record. I can't close a deal that's falling apart. Fair enough. But let me ask you something. Have you ever stayed in a hard conversation with someone you love when every part of you wants to leave the room? Have you ever pushed through a moment at work where you're sure you were going to get fired and you didn't? Have you ever kept going on something when everyone around you thought you were crazy? Then you already know how to hold through a hard moment. You've done it. You just haven't done it in a deal room yet. Resilience transfers. The muscle you build getting through whatever hard thing you've already survived, that's the same muscle I used in the 372 unit deal. It's the same muscle every successful investor uses every day. You already have it. You just haven't pointed it at real estate yet. Every reset costs more than the one before. Not just time, belief, and the most expensive kind of wasted time is the kind where you had what it takes and you talked yourself out of using it. I lost 15 years. I know what wasted time looks like. I don't want you to have that regret. The 372-unit deal taught me more about negotiations than any deal I've done since. Next week, I'm going to give you the framework, the exact moves, the language. I'll see you then.